Hello, 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 everyone. We are live in my recording studio this time, and I want to make sure that you can hear me okay. So let me know that you can hear my audio okay. And we're going to talk about some good stuff tonight. All right, perfect. First of all, if you want to participate in this in the comments and so forth, I'm not like sending text right now. I'm trying to pick up my app on my phone. If you want to participate, I don't know that I'll be able to pull this out. There's a hello, Diane and Michelle and Katie. There are three little dots. If you actually, I'll be able to do this in a sec. If you click on the link, especially if you clicked on it through a like Facebook or some other social media place, then oh, nice. I just got a notification that I'm live right now. I probably should have just clicked on that. But if you clicked through like on Facebook or something, then it will take you to a page that won't allow you to comment because they don't want you to comment. They want you to stay on their page, right? So, shoot, I'll be there in a second. I promise. Maybe not. My phone's not working or not pulling it up. Anyway, there's up in the upper right hand corner, if you're on your phone, this is all for your phone. There are three dots, and the three dots is what you'll need to open it up in your actual app. All right, I got it. Let me make sure my sound is off. So if you are on your phone, what you got to do is click on one of these two sets of dots, and then it will give an option to open it up in your browser on your desktop. And once you do that, then you'll be able to pull up the app and actually engage. So tonight, we're going to talk about the 10 steps to a successful business. And I've been in this conversation, for years, I've been in this conversation, but I've really been in this conversation over the last few days of what are the basic elements that are required for a successful coaching business. And what I can tell you is that what most people are doing are either not on that list, or they're doing it in the wrong order, or it's just convoluted. They're not keeping it as simple as they should be keeping it. So what I want to do for you in this short training is to, in short's relative, by the way, is to simplify this and let you know what it actually looks like. And there are plenty of different variables depending on your particular niche market and who you are and what you want to create and how much time you have. There's all kinds of different variables, but the basic principles are going to be these 10 based on my years of experience. And if you can find something that I don't bring up, you believe is another key fundamental that I don't bring up, then please let me know. And as you come in, let me know who you are. I'll see your name if you comment, but just let me know by saying hi. So I don't think I can share my screen. If I can, I don't know how. Anyway, it's not super important. But I do have a slide that I would love to show you. I guess I'll just have to look at it myself. So 10 fundamental steps. And these are not in order. This is not a sequence. Like step 1 is this, and then step 2 is this. It is just components, really, and pieces, and you're going to move step to step oftentimes. So I don't want you to think in terms of a linear process. And that is the way that a lot of people think. And it's one of the reasons that they stay stuck. And when I give you these components, there are 3 buckets that they fit into. One bucket is the work that you actually have to do. I'll explain all this obviously as I go through the pieces, but the work that you have to put in and the platforms that you have to build and so forth. That's one bucket. Another bucket is strategy, meaning more from a mental standpoint, coming up with marketing strategies and how you're going to get people from this platform to your email list, or once they're on your email list, what's the strategy to get them to buy a product or get on a phone call or something. So that's a mental brainstorming kind of function, and that's strategy. And then the third one is the inner game. And the inner game is everything that is internal. It's the fears, the doubts, the anxieties, the behavior patterns that you want to stop, the procrastination, all the sabotage. That's the inner game. Now, my experience is that almost nobody is interested in the inner game, and that's going to determine why everybody either fails or succeeds. It's an inner game problem or it's an inner game asset. And yet almost nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to either believe, or nobody wants to actually deal with it. But the inner game is the main reason that anybody is going to succeed or fail. I'd say that's true in life in general, but this coaching industry for sure. And when you step forward basically and you say that you can help somebody, you can help change their life, you are the product that they should believe in, that's going to make everything you've ever been afraid of come up pretty much on a personal level. It's going to force you to confront all of your beliefs about yourself, your self-esteem, your conflicts, your values. I mean, it's going to flush all the internal stuff up. And that's where people either win or lose. Now, the interesting thing is, even though most people don't want to touch any of that stuff, that's actually where all your value is. That's actually where the real truth and I'm trying to find another word than value, but the value for other people is in your inner game. And because you are the product and you want to give something to offer something to somebody that's going to change their life, you obviously want the product to be as valuable as possible, the offer to be as valuable as possible. And in order to make the offer as valuable as possible, you got to look inward, which most people don't want to do. Now, I'm not saying that this process is just this introspective, meditate 4 hours a day or handle deep trauma or any of that sort of stuff. It doesn't have to be any of that, but it has to be introspective to some degree. Now, some people will do all of those things that I just mentioned for them, and that's right for them, and that's fine. But it doesn't have to be the same for really anybody. And the reason I think that's important to understand is that the reasons that most people resist the inner game work are false reasons. They're not even relevant for everybody. And so if you've decided that you don't want to do the inner game work because it's going to look or feel like this, and it's actually not going to look or feel like that, well, then you've just talked yourself into sabotaging something that's actually not there. You've convinced yourself of a boogie monster that doesn't exist. And that's going to be the whole thing. You're never going to be able to outrun the inner game, ever. Even if you become successful without confronting anything, then at some point it's going to come crashing down. And I could even make an argument that that's not success if you don't do it in an authentic way. So anyway, those are the 3 buckets: work, strategy, and inner game. So let me now show you the 10, or I'm just going to have to say them to you because I don't know how to share my screen. these 10 steps. The first one is certainty of self. That certainty of who you are. I already kind of got into this. Certainty of who you are, certainty of the value that you bring, and certainty that you can be that leader. I mean, because coaching is leadership, really. You can be the leader and the guide and the facilitator with enough boldness to invite people in to sell products, to market, to get on video or write articles, whatever you're going to choose to do. You have the certainty of yourself that you can do that, that you can carry that torch, that you can lead the team if you're going to build a team of people. So you have to have certainty in yourself when you are the product and you're the leader of this mission. And that's inner game. So I'm going to give you these 10 things, and I'm going to tell you what each of them are. So that's all inner game. The second one is certainty of your skills. You have to have some kind of process to follow with coaching. You've got to have some kind of a framework. You have to have confidence that what you're going to be able to do with people is going to work. Because if you don't have the certainty in your skill set, if you can't look somebody in the eye and boldly say, I can help you, I have a process that's going to free you, that's going to liberate you, that's going to give you more joy, that's going to give you more courage, that's going to give you less doubt, whatever that process is. If you don't have the confidence in the skills, then they won't either. And one of the most common questions that I get asked with people that want to build a coaching business is, what if I don't know what to do with them? So it's a very valid issue for a lot of people. And even when people get certified, let's say they'll go to a big name certification school or any certification, and they get a list of exercises they can do, or they get these, like a coaching framework. A lot of times they still don't think, or they don't have the confidence in that framework. Now, usually that's because they don't have confidence in themselves. So while it's important to have confidence in the skills that you have, that's not where all of your confidence, or even most of your confidence, really truly is. Jeff, yeah, Jeff, I'm I'm just reading some of these comments. I had the screen pushed over so I couldn't see them all. Yes, live from my prison cell. It's my sound booth, so you can see I've got, like, this is where I record my podcasts, and I got my my sound foam up on the walls, and I just unplugged my computer, and I don't want my computer to shut off during this live. So let me plug that back in. Can always count on Jeff to show up and heckle a little bit on these live calls. I appreciate you, Jeff. Thank you. Somebody asked, what is the future of coaching industry with online segment is in boom? I'm not sure exactly if you're asking just where is that video, the future of the coaching industry. It's on my page. So if you search for that, unless you're asking a different thing and I'm just not reading it right, let me know. All right. So the confidence in skills is important, but you can't have all of your confidence just come from your skill set. In the coaching world, you're dealing with humans. And so you can't just think that everybody's going to do the same thing that the demonstrations did when you were learning how to do this, or everybody's going to go according to the script that you have in your brain. You've got to have certainty in yourself that you can use those skills, but the skill set certainty is important. And so that's inner game also. The third one is certainty of your seeker. Now, if you've not heard me use that term, it's a term that I believe I made up. At least I didn't learn it from anybody else. It's your target client, who it is that you want to help. But I call it your seeker because this person is actively seeking what you already have. In other words, you're not having to chase them down and rope them like like a cattle and try to convince them that they need to buy your thing. They're already looking for it. They're already seeking the knowledge that you have in your brain. And the more clarity and certainty you have on that seeker, the easier everything is from a marketing perspective and sales. And I believe your most valuable asset from a business standpoint is the perspective of your seeker. If you understand who they are and what they want and what they're typing into Google and all those things, you understand their, we call it psychographics, then you'll have no problem in business. But if you don't understand what your seeker is searching for and what they trust and what they don't trust, then everything is just a guess. It's a crapshoot. When you understand that your seeker is afraid of this particular thing and they're searching on Google for this particular phrase, then you can build a program that addresses that and probably title it whatever they're searching for in Google or some version of that, right? So that's why your seeker's perspective is your most valuable asset in business. And certainty of your seeker is inner game. Now, there's some strategy around that too, but the inner game of doing that work, trusting that you need to do that connective kind of work. This involves talking to people. It involves doing some research. It involves asking some questions. And that's where a lot of people's inner game gets in the way and they actually don't do it. So even though this is about researching and identifying something external, it's actually a very heavy inner game, not heavy in terms of difficult, but it's mostly an inner game process for most people. And it's kind of weird because it might not seem like it is, but it totally is. The fourth one is raising your confidence. And what I mean is in motion, raising your confidence as you go along. And the only way that you can raise your confidence as you evolve in your business is to continually take steps forward. So what most people are demanding of themselves is that they have a level of confidence that is only possible if they've taken like 10 steps, let's say. They want level 10 confidence before they take step 1. And that's never going to work. But most people want that to be the case. They want it to be possible, and they're demanding it of themselves because they don't ever want to get embarrassed. They don't ever want to feel like they let people down. And so they think that there's a way to be confident without taking action. And there's no such thing. The way you raise your confidence is take action and then notice yourself maneuver when things need to be navigated, and notice yourself do the work with other people and lead them through whatever transformations you're trying to lead them through. So this kind of confidence can only happen in motion. It's just continually walking up those stairs. And yet most people are just trying to leap, all the way up to the top of the staircase. So that is absolutely an inner game issue. And by the way, I didn't say this earlier, I don't think, but I'm happy to address any questions that you have about strategies or about coaching in general, skill set, marketing, what have you. You can, if you're live, you can type it into the comments. If you're watching the replay of this, you can type it into the normal comments on the below the video, and I'll answer them as best I can. The fifth thing, number 5, is a strategy, but it's also some inner game, and it is creating distinction. We live in a world where there's so many distractions. There's so much noise. And the way to make yourself stand out is to become different than a lot of the noise. Now, that's not easy because like any thought that you've had in your head, somebody else probably has a thought, and there's 1,000 coaches out there talking about it. So it's very difficult actually to get distinction in the content. But those people that, I mean, it's not impossible. Um, but when people think about being distinct, they think that that means they're the only ones talking about it. And it doesn't mean that at all. You don't have to be the only one that has a certain thought or the only one that's talking about a certain thing with a certain phrase. If you can find all those things, that's great. But I don't even want you to think that that's the goal at all. Where you got to find distinction is in yourself, which then makes it an inner game process, right? How can you be authentically you? Because if you are authentic to who you are, then you will be distinct because nobody else is you. So even if there is somebody talking about the same things that you're talking about, but you're doing it in a completely authentic, fully expressed version of yourself, you'll be distinct. And that might mean a certain kind of a brand, like a visual brand. Maybe you always wear a certain hat or a certain color or a certain background, like a prison cell background or whatever your distinction is. But mostly it's about your personality and your willingness to be real, your willingness to be authentic, your willingness to have fun. You know, all of those real experiences are the easier ways to be distinct. Now, I say easy. I probably shouldn't have said easy. I should have said simple. Those are simple ways to be distinct. They're not easy because most people don't want to do that stuff. Most people are afraid of authenticity. And that's where it becomes emotionally hard, but it's actually very easy to be yourself. You don't need any skills. You just need permission. That's it. And as you evolve in the process of building a business and getting clients and being creative and putting out content and stuff like that, then your authenticity and your distinction will continue to evolve as well. But you can't evolve, like nothing can evolve standing still. And yet so many people, again, are demanding that their messages evolve before they get started. Like they want to find that message that they're going to talk about for the rest of their lives, that signature thing that nobody else is talking about. And they're not going to start unless they have it all perfect, right? Number one, if you find that thing that you know you're going to be talking about for the rest of your life, if I had to bet my life, I would bet you won't be talking about that very long. Especially if it's coming from like an intellectual place, right? But the evolution process is what polishes your message, and it polishes your brand, and it polishes your confidence in yourself and distinction and all these things that we're talking about. Those all happen in motion. Those all happen by taking action. And most people, they're demanding to learn the lesson before they take the action required to learn the lesson. Michelle says, I used to believe that for a long time, that I had to come up with some original thing that's never been created, right? But the distinction is in you. You can talk about the thing that's been talked about a million times, but you give it a different voice. It's like how many different versions of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer are there, or any other like iconic song? There's so many different versions, but nobody's sung it the way that person sang it, right? And that goes for your message as well. So even if it's a message that other people have sung before, they haven't sung it in your voice, with your experiences, with your authenticity. So that's the best way to become distinct. The sixth one, actually, before we go on, let me put in a little plug here. So I just started recently, at the time that we're recording this, a marketing program. It's called the Foundations of Marketing for Coaches. And it's walking people through all these 10 steps and anything else that comes up. It's a year-long program. And it's teaching the foundations, as the title implies, of what you need to understand in marketing, the fundamentals of marketing, not just being attached to a certain platform. Because what if the platform changes? What if the algorithms change, right? So if we get too attached to the rules, too attached to the platforms, too attached to our tools, then we're not going to be able to survive if something changes. So I'm teaching the foundations of marketing from a much deeper place. And we'll certainly do a lot of those tactics and the mechanics and all those things, but we're doing it more from a place of distinction, as I just was talking about. So if you have any interest in that, I'm going to just posted a link, and you can go check it out on your own time and see if you want to join us. And if you're watching this on replay and the program's not open, then send me an email and we'll let you know when it reopens, or if we put it on online or something like that. Yes, if Diane says if we're not distinct in ourselves, then the people looking for us can't find us. Correct, because we're not showing up in our distinct versions. Okay, number 6, building a platform. This is work. And I'm talking about actually putting up websites and putting together funnels and so forth. So I'm not talking about the creation of it in your head. That'd be more of the strategy, but building the platform, building a social media account, if you have that, building the website, building the opt-in pages where people can join your email list. All of that stuff is work. And it's actually the easiest stuff on this list, right? Anything that involves work, either you can do it, or you can learn how to do it, or you can pay somebody to do it. But too many people put so much emphasis on the platforms, or on the visual, like the visual consumption, I guess, that other people have, meaning what does your website look like, and what is your logo, and what is your brand, and all that stuff. And I'm not saying any of that is unimportant, but it's nowhere near as important as most people think it is. So this is not a gigantic ingredient in the recipe in terms of importance, in my opinion, because it's not really what stops people. Nobody's going to be stopped because they don't have a way to put up a website. Millions of people know how to put up a website. So you're never going to be stopped by your inability to do the work. You'll be stopped by the inner game around it. And what does it look like? And it has to be perfect. And what if people don't like it? That's different. But the actual doing of it, that's not difficult at all. Number 7 is marketing your content. Now, this involves all 3 of them, in my opinion. It involves work to actually put the messages out there, whether it's online or email or what have you. It certainly involves strategy. There's got to be a reason that you're marketing a certain way and you're inviting people to go somewhere. And it's absolutely inner game, because you're marketing you're marketing yourself. And that's not easy at all, to say, I'm the person that can help you. Right? So that scares a lot of people, because it opens you up for failure. It opens you up for humiliation. It opens you up for attack. It opens you up for anything negative, right? Marketing is an exercise in visibility, and most people are terrified of visibility. So it's a big inner game exercise. Yeah, Jeff says you can pay somebody to do the work, but that kind of external work, but the inner work, you got to do. So marketing your content. What is marketing? Marketing is really, it's telling people a story. It's telling people what you have. It's intriguing them. It's giving them value. It is educating them. And what I'll say that marketing will require going forward is giving people a transformational experience for free before they actually need to trust you enough to pay you. Give them a transformational experience for free. And transformational doesn't have to be like super deep. It could be that you teach them a question to ask in the moment where they're afraid of making a phone call, and they ask the question and their body feels different, and the fear isn't there anymore. That's a transformational experience. It could be that you help them look at a significant person in their life a different way, and they see them from a place of love or see them from a place of compassion. That could be a transformational experience. It could be that you teach them a, a very simple process to follow, and they follow the process, and in implementing your process, they have some shift. They have a result, or they feel different or something. And that's a transformational experience for them. So in the future, because people are tired of being ripped off, and they're tired of being taken advantage of, and they're tired of buying expectations that don't come true, I think in a very short period of time, people will only be willing to buy experiences, because they can't deny the experience that they had in their body. And then what marketing will become is, let me share with you something that I know that will help you, and you experience it. And then my invitation is, do you want more of what you just experienced? Rather than, let me build up this idea that I've got to sell you to trust me enough, or create so much desperation that you're going to say yes to this expectation that I'm selling you. But you haven't felt anything yet. I'm just selling you theory. I'm selling you the idea of what might happen if you walk through that door, but I put a price tag on going through the door. Of course, that's possible. That's really what happens all the time. But people are so tired of that they have their guards up, and the lack of trust is everywhere. So they can't distrust an experience that they had, though. I mean, because they had, like, you can't argue with that. I felt different, or I followed a set of instructions and something happened. You can't argue with that kind of experience. And when you give people that kind of experience, then it's so much easier to just say, hey, if you like that, then why don't you try this? This is just an elevated experience of that. Gary, great question. People keep calling me a life coach. I tell people I'm a leadership coach. Do I have an identity or a marketing issue? Probably. For the longest time, like up until a year ago, I was not a life coach. Anybody called me a life coach, I was going to correct them. Although I didn't know what else I was. I would say, like, I don't know what I am, but I'm not that. I'm not the life coach. So if you find yourself resisting that label, then that probably means there's some kind of identity misalignment. Maybe you don't like what the connotation of a life coach is. Maybe you had a negative experience with a life coach, or maybe you just don't want people to think that you're like a therapist or a counselor, or just helping people get happier in their life, which is all fine, by the way. If you really truly are more interested in leadership, then it's great that you call that out in even what you call yourself, if that's true. If what you do is more along the lines of helping people in their life, then it certainly could be an identity issue. Like, what is this? What's the resistance, right? I think for me, it's pretty much what I just said. I didn't want to be seen as this woo-woo. I don't know. I don't even know how I can articulate it. But it was just this, like, I'm not this woo-woo life. And here's one of the issues. There's so many life coaches. So I don't like being lumped in with a bunch of other people. Self-leadership coaching, I like too. And adding the self in there adds a little bit more intrigue too. So I do like that. And what is a life coach anyway? I mean, everything we do deals with life. It might not deal with relationships or our personal lives, but if you help somebody in business, you're helping them in their lives, right? So if we really take a look at what that phrase means, there's no universal understood boundary around a life coach. But it's the connotation that I had, and so many people were calling themselves a life coach. I didn't want to be lumped in with all the cuckoo life coaches. And so I didn't want to be a life coach. But the bottom line is, I am. I mean, I'm actually more excited about helping people in their lives than I am helping them in their business. It gives me more joy to hear people say that they fell back in love in their marriage, or they stopped beating themselves up or beating their children, which I've heard before, or they no longer want to kill themselves. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I love more. And there's certainly a component to coaching that's going to help people be successful, which is also fun. My system is very logical and systematic. Totally fine. And if it's more logical and systematic, then it's probably best that you move away from the life coach moniker, the life coach title. All I would say is just make sure to check in with yourself and see if this is a fear, like you're afraid of being called a life coach and therefore it could be some identity thing, or maybe you're afraid of actually dealing with people's life issues, whatever that is. Or is it just a strategic choice? If it's just strategy that you're only interested in attracting people that are interested in systematic, logical approaches, and those people that are interested in that approach are probably not going to be attracted to the term life coach, then let me be a self leadership coach. Or I would even add something even more logical than self leadership. And maybe it's like the rules of self leadership if you're going to do a PDF download or a book or something like that, or self-regulated leadership. If you add some kind of a logical word like that, then it might attract them even more. Ultimately, you got to test, obviously, to know what really works. But if it's strategic, that's fine. If it's a fear, that's not fine. And that's what we want to explore with ourselves. Right? So let's see, where am I? Marketing your content. So giving people these transformational experiences is also a way to be distinct too. And when you invite them into this experience and they enjoy it, then why would they not want more? Of course, they're going to want more if they enjoyed it. And if they didn't enjoy it, well, that's fine. Then they just didn't enjoy it. They didn't get it, or they didn't have whatever the transformation was. And that's great. That means that they probably weren't going to be a happy client of yours anyway. So don't take that on as your personal failure. Just take that on as a filtering system, right? So marketing your content also has a ton of fragmentation in it, meaning that if we're talking to 10 people in the room, once we get into the marketing conversation, we were having 10 different conversations, because the way you market your content, like a logical and systematic approach, like Gary's talking about, the way you market that could be totally different than Deborah, who says, I'm a happy coach. I assume that means a happiness coach, like help people be happy. So whenever we get into the actual strategies around marketing, there's going to be a lot of personal variables, personal considerations, personal questions before we can give you our advice of what to do. And that's not what we generally see in the market. What we generally see is people that are telling you, I'll tell you exactly what to do. I'll tell you exactly how to be successful. All you do is you do this on Instagram, you do this on Facebook, you do this on the internet and put up a Facebook ad or whatever. And that's dangerous advice. There's no such thing as a one size fits all approach to everybody or to anybody. And yet pretty much everybody's wanting it, right? They're looking for that one size fits all. So they are chasing all of these general concepts that can't provide individual success, at least not at the highest levels. I mean, it can move the needle a little bit, but not completely. So we got to stop trying to fit ourselves into somebody else's template. We got to build a structure around us. And how you market and what you market is dependent on all those other things I've already said and several other things. And so it's disrespectful for me to say, oh, I know how you should market, when what you do is not exactly what I do, right? So for instance, I was watching an Instagram training the other day, and this one was fantastic training on Instagram. She was talking about how to collect leads on Instagram. Now, what does she teach? She teaches how to build a business with Instagram. So she's on Instagram. Everybody that sees her on Instagram is also on Instagram. And if they're on Instagram, it's a pretty safe bet that they want to grow their Instagram presence. They want to make more money on Instagram. So it's a slam dunk. She's on Instagram teaching Instagram strategies to people who want to learn Instagram strategies. But if you take that same approach and you've got like Gary's strategic and logical self-leadership system, there's no guarantee that somebody who sees your Instagram profile is interested in strategic, logical self-leadership. So you can follow her exact template that might make her 7 figures a year, and it might literally make you nothing. Because what we might find is that your people that you're looking for are not on Instagram searching for strategic and logical self-leadership. So for me to tell you this is how you market your business, just do this thing on Instagram or do this thing on a Facebook ad or do whatever the thing is, it's disrespectful to you if I don't know exactly who you are. So I actually think it's bullshit to teach these one-size-fits-all approaches, but I'm not angry and judgmental anymore. I used to be not angry and judgmental at the people who are teaching this stuff because they only teach what people buy. So it's like, why are we mad at the drug dealers? The drug dealers will always exist as long as people want drugs. And you can lock up all the drug dealers in one swoop. Somebody else will fill the role as long as there's a demand for drugs. So as long as there is a demand for one-size-fits-all approaches, there will be a supply of one-size-fits-all approaches. And I would say the people that sell those one-size-fits-all approaches are actually brilliant because they're selling what the people are demanding. So the problem here is not in the supply. The problem here is in the demand, that we think that there's such a thing as a one-size-fits-all that's going to help us grow our business when we are the product. I mean, that's what you got to understand. This is not like, if you buy a franchise, if you buy a coffee franchise, there's a pretty clear system of how to market that coffee, how to market that brand, how to get people's attention. But you're not the same franchise as anybody else. You're different. And the more distinct you are means the more different you are. The more willingness you are to be transparent means the more different you are from anything else that can be fit into a template. So stop searching for blueprints and templates and turnkey systems. Those are all marketing concepts that are really seductive and sexy because people think, oh, I've got a guaranteed success here. And I don't have to do any dirty work. I don't have to think for myself. It's guaranteed. So there's no chance of failing because look at all these testimonials and look how easy it is. All I got to do is pay this money and then plug something in and it's going to work and it's going to light up. Yeah, that's what we're all wanting. And it does not exist other than the fact that it's being sold all the time. So the concept exists and people are searching for it and buying it, but the actual reality of that just doesn't exist, at least in this industry. It exists in some areas with certain products and stuff like that, but you have to respect yourself enough to not try to fit yourself into somebody else's game plan. Don't try to find the assembly line that's easiest to jump onto and then just jump onto it. It's easiest because it's the cheapest, or it's easiest because it's the safest, or it's easiest because it matches what you think you needed anyway. All you're going to do is just come out the other side, a watered down version of something else or somebody else. And then you're going to have to get something else anyway. Like when people buy all these microwave approaches, they buy all these Band-Aids. At some point, you're going to realize that the Band-Aids don't work. So at some point, you're going to look back and just notice all the wasted money and time that you spent on the Band-Aid approaches. Like when I first started out, I wanted to save so much money. And so I bought this, which is fine to want to save money. There's nothing wrong with that. But I bought a video camera. Like I wanted to get the cheapest camera that I could, that was usable, right? So I bought a video camera for like $150 and it was awful. It was terrible. It was cheap. I didn't want to fork over the $1,000 for the big video camera. So I bought the $150 one, and then that didn't work. And so then I needed another one, and I bought the $300 one. The $300 one was the lowest price that was still technically high def, I think, at the time, high definition. So I bought that one, and then that one either broke or stopped working or didn't do what I needed it to do. So then I ended up buying a $450 one, and eventually the one I have out there right now is $1,000. And so now I look back and go, because I didn't want to spend $1,000, I wasted $1,200 before I spent the $1,000. And so a lot of times that's what we do. We're just buying all these band-aids, and we end up wasting more money than we weren't willing to spend in the first place, and then still have to spend it because we realize that the Band-Aid is never going to work. And so now we've just got this pile of Band-Aids and guilt and shame now because we, have all this stuff that didn't work. So anyway, back to the idea of marketing your content. It's a personal approach, and it's not that difficult if you do all the other work and you understand who you are and you understand who your seeker is and where they are and so forth. It's not that difficult to learn how to market. And the other thing is there are no rules in marketing. I mean, whatever you feel like doing, go ahead and try also, right? I don't want you to be careless. I don't want you to spend a lot of money in your trying. But if you feel like, if you have a question, like what if just you ponder, like, what if I did a video on this, or what if I did a live video every day, or what if I did this? Most of us think ideas like that, and then they shut them down because we don't know if they're the right ideas. We don't know if they're going to produce what we want them to produce, but there's no way to know. We're asking ourselves to predict the future, and there's literally no way to know. So, so we're demanding ourselves do something that's quite literally impossible. And then we have all these ideas that end up on the shelf of maybe, or I don't know if it'll work. And, and the collection, the internal damage, scar tissue of collecting all those ideas that we don't implement because we don't know if they're right, that does way more damage than actually doing something and having it not work. So it's way better to just try stuff, be authentic, be real, be open, be honest, and get your message out, get some kind of exposure. Gary asks, have you had success with Facebook advertising? Would you recommend it for coaches? I do recommend Facebook advertising at a certain point. Once you have a product that works and people will buy, then, and you have success selling it to those people, then you can use Facebook advertising to accelerate the process. I'd never suggest using Facebook advertising to learn whether people are going to buy something or not. And for whatever reason, that's what a lot of people do. They probably are doing it because they just bought a program that says you can make $1 million Facebook advertising. And they don't realize that the company that's making the $1 million Facebook advertising has a brick and mortar business for the last 30 years, and they've been massively successful. And so they took the success and just moved the thing that's already proven to be successful onto Facebook. And yet the new coach is trying to be, the allure of the story is intoxicating. And so the new coach wants to do the 7 figures, and they don't realize, I don't even know if anybody's going to buy this thing. And I don't even know if people will buy it, if they're going to like it. I don't know if I can manage all that stuff. So if you already have something that's working and you have the confidence and the certainty and all the things that I'm talking about, then you can absolutely use Facebook advertising to increase your reach. But it's becoming more and more difficult, like by the day. The competition that's in Facebook advertising is a lot harder. The reason it's so good is because you can target people so well. Facebook owns the most powerful collection of data on the planet, right? I mean, more powerful than the CIA and the government and anybody else. So we can tell Facebook, I want this ad to only be visible to married couples who speak English and live in one of these 3 countries and are a certain age. Why? Because Facebook has all that information on their profile. And the targeting ability of Facebook is what makes it really, really good. But if you don't have a product that you know is going to work, you're going to have to spend a lot of money to figure that out. And most people can't survive the ad spend early on if they're trying to learn if this is going to work or not. If you know this is going to work, you have a product and you have a seeker, and you're positive that that seeker wants this product because of experience, you know you've already been selling that product to this seeker, then you can just introduce Facebook as another way to find that match. And then there's all kinds of different considerations when it comes to Facebook advertising. I've had success. I've had massive failures with Facebook. There's lots of variables there. So it can work if you understand the game. There's risk. You're paying money. I'm usually not in favor of risking money when we haven't gotten the certainty. But if you have money to burn or it's just worth it to you, then yes, there are people that are making a lot of money as coaches on Facebook advertising. You just have to make sure that you have the match. Okay, the next one, number 8, is converting sales. You have to know that what it is you're selling is going to be enticing enough for people to actually say yes and to pay you. I mean, we're talking about a business here, right? So one element of business is obviously making sales, cash flow, and everything that goes along with, transactions. And you have to, that's a process that has to be learned. Now that is an inner game process, because a lot of coaches don't like sales. They don't like feeling like they're being pushy. That's a strategic process. How the sale is actually going to work. How do you position it? What are you going to price it at? How are you going to name it? So there's a lot of strategy that goes into that. And then of course there's work on that one too. You got to put up the websites if you're selling it online. If you're selling it in a live seminar or something, you got to get the room and get people in the room and so forth. So this encompasses all the buckets for sure: inner game, strategy, and work. And really, converting sales is the last thing. Well, not the last thing, but it's one of the last things. Well, I would say it's the last thing in the sales and marketing process. Although it should be termed marketing and sales process, because that's the order that it happens. But you do all this work to get people into a funnel or get people into some kind of a sequence, and you market to them and you give them whatever experiences, and then you offer a product, and then they buy the product. That's where the sale happens. After that would be the delivery. So there's still stuff to do after that. You got to deliver the product, whatever it is. But in the order of, I'm forgetting, what is it called? The whatever the order is, like it's right on the tip of my tongue. The order of the steps that people go through, chronological order that they go through, has the sale at the very end. And so a big mistake that people make is that's the way they actually build their business. They focus on what's on the front end, which is marketing and websites and all this visibility stuff. And then they focus on how do you market to these people to get them to this thing. And then finally, if they ever do, they put a little bit of work into the sale. And that's actually, in my experience, the worst thing you can do. You should start with the sale. You should start understanding this process. And when I say start with the sale, like make sure that people actually want this product, and make sure that you sell the product before you build out all of the invitations, right? Like if this product isn't necessarily something that people are going to buy, then why would you spend any money building a pathway to it? It's a waste of money. And if you understand the sale first, you understand what's being sold, how to sell it, and you get confirmation that it's a viable, valuable product because people actually sell it or actually buy it, then you can use your understanding of it to build the bridge to it, because you're going backwards here. And it's a lot easier to explain to somebody at the front end of the marketing bridge what's on the other end if you really truly understand that. But if you don't really truly understand that and you just put all your energy in the other stuff, then you might have a really intriguing, enticing funnel that brings a lot of people into your marketing, and then they come to the point where they're going to say yes or no, and they don't even want to say yes. So you can have this amazingly powerful marketing system and no sales happening because you didn't give enough attention to this. And that's usually an inner game thing because you don't know who you are. You're actually afraid of people saying, some coaches are afraid of people saying yes to them because they're afraid of letting them down. So, I mean, just imagine that, trying to sell yourself when you're afraid of disappointing people. So the way that you can not disappoint people is make sure nobody ever hires you. So trust me, if you have a fear of disappointing people, your brain is at work 24 hours a day trying to make sure that never happens. In the form of sabotage, fears, it's going to create all of this internal turmoil to make sure, because it's like you told it you don't ever want to disappoint people. And so it goes, okay, I know how to do that. Just make sure nobody ever hires you. And then, yay, we solved our problem, right? But then your conscious mind goes, no, but we have a business to build. I don't care. You told me that you're afraid of disappointing people. So I'm making sure that doesn't happen. And then that's the inner conflict that so many people deal with. And they don't even realize that they're actually afraid of getting hired. So this is a situation where some people are more afraid of a yes than they are of a no. And that's a tough place to be in, especially if they don't know that it's happening. I mean, you can't fix something that you're not aware of, right? So converting the sale is really, really important. And my philosophy when I have coaches and I'm teaching them marketing and building a business, my philosophy is always get private clients first. Don't worry about putting up websites and doing all these other things that a lot of people are teaching and putting up webinars and all that. Get clients first. And it's actually easier to get private clients with no overhead at higher prices than it is to build a sales funnel online and then put it up against all the other sales funnels online. And there's only about 90 million of them. And then compete against all of them with your first go around, especially if you're a new coach. You compete against all these sharks that are hiring sharpshooters to compete at that front line. And they're putting thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a day into marketing. And then you come out with your little thing and say, hey, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. Probably not going to have a lot of success with that. And if you don't have success with that and you don't have the body, you don't have the certainty, and you don't have all those things, you'll probably just turn around and retreat and lick your wounds and maybe never go back. But if we do the thing that's actually easier and going to give you the most amount of confidence and the best strategy, why don't we do that first? It doesn't take any money to get a client. It doesn't. It takes a conversation is really all it takes. You know, it'll take some money for you to get the confidence and for you to get certified and all the things that prepare you. But from a marketing standpoint, it doesn't actually take money to get a private client. And then from your experience of the private client, then you can build all these other things out. The ninth thing is systems for growth. And I just kind of alluded to that. This is another fragmented conversation because it all depends on you. It depends on what your foundational systems are in the first place to then decide how are we going to grow that. So for instance, I was speaking to somebody recently, and we were talking about licensing his content to schools because he has content that schools are teaching in professional environment, and these people need certifications. And so he might be able to license his content to 150 schools around the country. Most of us aren't going to be able to do that because that's not the market that we're in. That's not the kind of content that we have, but that's a possibility for him. Some of us, scaling means that we hire other coaches underneath us. That's one of the things that we do is I certify coaches and then they coach for us under our brand. Or scaling might mean Facebook ads. If you can create a system that's profitable on Facebook, and you know that let's say it takes 2 or 3 months for you to create a system on Facebook to where you know that if you invest $100, you're going to get $105 back. That doesn't sound very sexy. But if you have a predictable system that will kick out $105 every time you put 100 in, the only question that makes sense to me next is how much money can you find to put in that machine? Because it kicks back 5% more every time. So when we get a profitable system that's scalable, such as an ad campaign, then we can scale it up very quickly as long as it's predictable, right? I don't want you to just throw $20,000 into a machine that you don't know. But once it gets predictable, we can scale it up very, very quickly and then expand your reach, expand your income, expand all that stuff. But not all of you will ever do that because your content doesn't really lend itself to that. So when we scale, there are a bunch of different ways to scale, but it's all dependent on what your foundation is in the first place. And then finally, number 10 is, again, I would say something that a lot of people don't really put into the process. And it's one of the things that's most critical to the process, which is your own personal development and your support. Content is not what makes people succeed or fail. Support is. There are so many people who have really good content, like they've bought content and they know how to put up a website and how to do the tactical stuff, right? But they don't know what to do if they have a question. If they have a question of how does this relate to my target market? How does this relate to me? How does this relate to my product or whatever? If they have any of those kinds of questions and they don't have anybody to ask the questions to, then it's going to be very difficult for them to keep moving. So my experience in this process of helping a lot of people build businesses is that support is actually the most valuable resource you can invest in. Support, not information. And along the way, part of that support is going to be with your own personal development. Because as you become more successful, as your identities are stretched, as your comfort zone is stretched, as your budget or income or time, as all these things are stretched, which success does generally, then we're going to need some personal development there. We're going to need some coaching. We're going to need some support. We're going to need somebody with an external perspective to see the things that are in our blind spots that we can't see. So my experience is that support is the most important, and I would say by far the most important thing, so that you can get ideas from other people. You can know that you're not the only lunatic out there that's afraid of pushing record when you get the phone out, or you know that you're not the only one that has all these super exciting ideas, but you don't know how to implement them. And then you actually get help implementing some of those ideas. You know, a lot of other people might have ideas that you didn't have. And so personal development and support is going to be the thing that is required as you grow, if you want to continue growing or if you want to be happy while you do it. And almost nobody has a budget for it, and almost nobody has enough value on it to understand that it's so critical as you implement and as you have new ideas and as you just need to be human sometimes, right? We're all human, and sometimes we're going to be afraid. Sometimes we're going to have little tantrums. Sometimes we might have full-on panic attacks. If you try to combat those things individually on your own when you're the one that created them, that's going to be very, very difficult to ever uncreate, because you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created the problem. So those are the 10 things, and almost all of them involve a very high level of inner game work, personal development work. So I think that's the best thing you can invest in. And then the other things are important, but they're not the most important in my experience. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I haven't been monitoring all of these comments here. Facebook ads, we talked about. More afraid of the yes. Yeah, I mean, the other thing about support that Michelle kind of alluded to in the comments here is it's just inspiring, just to bounce ideas off of each other and think of things that you wouldn't have thought of. I have a book coming out pretty soon. Yeah, I'll answer that question in a second, Gary. I have a book coming out as I'm recording this now uh, on the father-daughter relationship. It's called Daddy, Are You Proud of Me? And the way I got that idea is I was talking to somebody and I was telling them that I wanted to write a parenting book about all the things that I had learned about limiting beliefs and how, we parents don't understand how limiting beliefs are created. And I, as a coach, do. And I've been studying it for a long, long time. And so I wanted to write a book for parents to teach them about limiting beliefs. And this woman who I really didn't have a lot of connection with. I mean, we'd talked to each other a few times. She just asked me some questions and I was telling her, this is my story. I've been coaching women for so long. And these are some of the things that I've just learned. And she goes, "That's the book you need to write." And I'm like, "What are you even talking about?" She goes, "That book, that one." Because I think I said, I have learned a bunch of these things. And as a dad, it changed the way I started parenting my daughter. And she goes, "That's it right there. That's the book you need to write." And I hadn't even thought of it, and I help other people figure out what they should be doing. But we all have blind spots. No matter how brilliant we are, no matter how much we've done something, we all have blind spots. And I really think this book is going to change everything. I mean, it's going to change so many lives. It's going to change, I don't know that's going to change me, but it's going to demand more of me. It's going to provide a much bigger platform. It's going to change the course of our business, I believe. And it wasn't my idea. It was somebody else pulling out of one of the sentences that I said what that value was for her. And so you can be as incredibly brilliant as Einstein. You still can't coach yourself. You cannot. You can try. You can try to be the first person in human history. Most people are trying to be the first person in human history to be able to coach themselves and get the most out of themselves, but it's biologically impossible. The brain is not designed to get the most out of us. The brain is designed to keep us safe and comfortable. So you're never going to get the most out of yourself with the mechanism that's designed to keep you safe and comfortable. All right, let me look at a couple things here. Have you ever been doing too many things and spread too thin? Absolutely. I was just having this conversation with Michelle last night about how when you really care so deeply about something, it's easy to get spread too thin. And especially if you enjoy all those things, it's tough. Again, this is a personal thing because the reason that people are spread too thin might be totally different if we take a look at each one of them. But I'll give you a couple thoughts that I have, or at least one that I have right now. Being spread too thin. First of all, we got to know what too thin is. Does that mean that your marriage is breaking down, that your health is suffering, that you're going crazy, that you're not sleeping? Like, what are the effects of too thin? And then usually what we have to do is take a look at your values and see if the things that you're doing are aligned with the things that are most important to you. Because when people are doing the things that are most important to them, they usually don't have the experience of being spread too thin. I mean, you can still be doing something that you really love and just doing it so much that you're not sleeping or eating, or, there's consequences in your relationships. So it's possible. But being spread too thin, I would say for most of the time, for most people, it's about doing things that they're not fully 100% aligned with. And having all these responsibilities is taking away from something else that's more important that they would rather put their time into. So we usually do values work with that. That's where I would start. What are your values? What is most important to you? And another issue with being spread too thin for a lot of people is not setting boundaries, saying yes to everything. If you're being spread too thin, that probably means that you've said yes to a bunch of things that are beyond your capacity if you're too thin. And so maybe that's what we need to look at is how often do you say no? And have you said yes to things just because you don't want to say no? Or have you said yes to things because it's a good thing to do, but in saying yes to the good, you say no to something great? So boundaries is a really big conversation, and it's also based on values. So those two go hand in hand. And a lot of times you need external perspective to see that you're being spread too thin. So that's another reason for coaching and support. Yeah, Essentialism is a good book. I do strategic planning for nonprofits. That's awesome. I also do strategic planning for individuals. It's my coaching system. I also do elite mindset, sports psychology coaching. Nice. Is it too much? It depends on how it's affecting you. I have a bunch of different products and a bunch of different funnels, let's say. So I've got this book coming out on parenting. I've been coaching in direct sales for a long time, primarily with Mary Kay women. I've been coaching coaches for a long time. I do certifications for coaches and skill set work. And with the foundations course, I'm teaching coaches how to market. I am interested in relationships. I've got another book coming out soon that I wrote with my wife called You Can't Complete Me. And the thing is, you don't want to be talking to all the people at the same time. That's where it gets really challenging. So can you have 3 different areas? Yes, absolutely. But it's going to be very difficult to do it all at once. Now, if you were just starting out, it doesn't sound like you're just starting out, but if somebody was just starting out and they were saying, I want to do this, this, and that, what I would advise is to build one of them first. It's like you're putting the foundation and the first floor of a building. And once that first floor is established, you've got the systems and you've got leverage and you've got the time, then build the second floor. And maybe the second floor is strategic planning for individuals. And then once those two are established and solid, then you can build the third floor, which could be the elite mindset or vice versa. The order doesn't matter, but it's the concept that you want to build on top of foundation rather than trying to build 3 houses at the same time, 3 separate complete buildings at the same time. And then when you're marketing, you want to make sure that you're talking to one person at a time. So you're not trying to appeal to the nonprofit organization and the elite mindset athlete at the same time. Now, of course, I'm sure you wouldn't ever do those 2 things, but a lot of people are trying to talk to multiple individuals at once. They're trying to talk to stay-at-home moms. And at the same time, if you want to learn yoga, stay-at-home moms that want to build a direct sales business. But if you want to learn yoga, I can teach you yoga too. Or if you want to lose weight, I can teach you how to lose weight too. It's kind of like getting a business card. If you've ever gotten a business card and the business card has like one business on the front and then on the back, it has 2 more businesses, right? I'm a handyman. I'm a personal trainer and I'm a heart surgeon. Like, you just pick which one you want me to be. That's confusing. And it's actually disruptive. And generally, I would say people don't trust somebody that does all kinds of things because they want specialists, somebody that does one thing really well. So you don't have to really, truly only be doing one thing, But when you're talking about that one thing, you're talking to one person, your focus should be there. And I'm not just talking about actually speaking. I'm talking about marketing and how you're focusing on your business. So my advice is to build it in tracks, kind of. Tracks might not be the best word, but layers and levels to a house, layers and levels to a house, rather than trying to do it all at once. So I don't think it's too many things. If you're managing them properly and you've got separate systems for each one of them, then it's fine. But if you feel like you're being spread too thin, then maybe that's something to look at. Maybe you take one of them off your plate for now until you can build a better foundation, and then give you more time for it later. Anything else before we wrap up here? I appreciate all of your time and your comments and your energy and what you want to do on the planet. If there's anything else that you have a question about, then let me know. Otherwise, we can call it a session. And this would be by far my shortest YouTube live video. The first YouTube live that I did, I'm pretty sure we went 4.5 hours. And then the next one, I totally cut it down to only like 2.5 or maybe 2 3/4. You're welcome, Deborah. Angel says, but you would have to live life to be a life coach. And wouldn't that mean you have to be exposed as a cornucopia of experiences? Are you talking about the idea of being like a handyman and a jack of all trades kind of thing? In terms of being exposed? I think that's what you're talking about. And I wouldn't be so concerned about that if somebody already feels served. Like if you come into my funnel for coaches, let's say, and you like what you see and you buy a product, or you just hang around and join our email list or something, and then you see later on, like once you've established trust in me and you and there's a rapport, and then later on you see that I have a parenting book coming out, I don't think it's going to lower your rapport that has already been established. But if as soon as we meet, in the welcome email, it says, if you're a parent, I can do this, or if you're a single mom wanting to build a business, I can do that, or if you want yoga, I can do that. I think early on in the process, before rapport has been established and trust, I think that's where it's more dangerous to just be too scattered for people. Colin says, any advice on pricing? Man, that's a big conversation. It is individual. But I'll speak to it as in try to give you as much value as I can in a general sense. Pricing is determined, well, the price should be lower than the value of the product, so that people think that if they exchange a certain dollar amount that has a perceived value in their brain, they're going to get more value back. And that makes it an easier decision, right? But the value of the product is determined by the market, not by the coach. So, for instance, I have a coaching package with me personally. And in one market, I sell that coaching package for $5,000. And in another market, I can't get anywhere near $5,000 for that coaching package. And in a different market, I could probably sell the exact same coaching package for $45,000. It's the same person, me. It's the same coaching process and the same package, but the value is determined by the person experiencing the package. And so I think a lot of people approach pricing from the wrong perspective. They approach it from, how valuable is my time worth? And number one, if I'm concerned about my time as the coach, I'm not putting the focus where at least it's got to be taken into consideration, which is the client. What do they think is valuable? And it's not the process of coaching that's valuable, it's the outcome that's valuable. So I say those coaching packages are different pricing in different markets, because in one market, I could help people, I don't know, help people increase their joy a little bit, right? And they just might not have a high value on that. In another market where I could maybe do the $45,000 one, maybe that's with CEOs of multi-million dollar corporations. And if I help that CEO fall back in love in his marriage, or get to a place where he feels more peace and calm, he already has all the money in the world. That doesn't matter. But he might pay a ton of money for happiness and peace, or to remove depression or something. So to that guy who's a real high money guy and a high leverage, high stress guy, he might pay any amount of money for the outcome of peace and happiness. Whereas somebody else that just isn't in those situations, they're not going to pay almost anything for peace and happiness. But it's the same thing. It's the same product. But the value is in the perception of the outcome of the product. So when we look at pricing, we got to take a look at what are your seekers already buying, and what are they paying for things that are similar to what you're offering them. That's where I would start. Then I think it's important to check in with yourself. Where's your level of certainty? If somebody asks you, how much does your coaching cost? And your coaching is $100 for a session, let's say $100 an hour, your coaching is $1,000 for a 3-month package, and you can't choke $3,000 out of your mouth, or $1,000 rather, for 3 months, you can't get it out of your mouth, then that shouldn't be your price. Your price should be $800 or $600. Whatever you can say with confidence and certainty should be your price, because the certainty in you delivering that price is actually going to be a bigger factor for the person saying yes than a lot of the details of what they're going to get. And so I'm always in favor of creating the experience of getting paid. And if you can't say $1,000 for 3 months, because that's beyond your personal certainty level, then lower it to wherever your certainty is. Do coaching at that point. And when you deliver good coaching and people like the process, your certainty will raise. And so the next time you talk to somebody, you might pitch them $1,500, but you wouldn't have gotten that certainty unless you coached 4 people at $600, right? So this is a process of internal certainty as well as strategic market comparison, I would say. What other people are generally used to selling or used to buying. And then all the other considerations are going to be personal and based on experience and how did that work and so forth. So hopefully that helps, Colin. Should I focus on the needs and not the price? I would say focus on the outcome. And that's probably what you meant, but I wouldn't use the word needs, nor would I focus on what people need, because people don't usually buy what they need. They buy what they want, especially in the personal development industry. So they're buying the outcome. So what is the value of having a thin body? The weight loss industry is like $1 trillion industry. So the value collectively is a ton of money. And we've all spent probably hundreds and if not thousands of dollars on some kind of get slim fast program, right? So the outcome of losing a bunch of weight really fast without having to change anything is super high. But the need of learning all the different kinds of foods and what it does in our body, and then learning ourselves and going through this big process, a lot of people won't want that, even though that's what they need. They won't buy that. They'll buy the get rich or get Get Slim Fast program, which is why that Slim Fast is an actual name that works. That's what people want. They want to get slim fast. So I would focus on what the value of the outcome is, not what the needs are. And then do a little bit of that price comparison and check in with yourself and stuff like I was saying. Yes, Angel, narrowing your niche and your seeker are important. And I thought that you did have some pretty good clarity on veterans that you wanted to at least start with. So I think that would be a good point, or a good place to start. Gary says, is there money to be made in blogging? Yes. I'm better at writing than being on video. I'm writing a book called Front Load. Cool. That focuses on the neuroscience of recovery. That's really cool. Should I put my time in writing? If you are afraid of video, then I would say confront that, because I don't want you to write simply because you're afraid of video. If you're not afraid of video and you just strategically believe that writing is a better way to get in front of people and it's a better use of your creativity and your genius, then that's fine. But I don't want you to make that choice out of fear. Now, video is a great way to create trust and rapport and connection. And it's a great way to be authentic and vulnerable because people can see all of you. There's a visual sensation, there's an audio sensation, and there's an informational sensation. If you're writing, it's really just information. They can't hear you and they can't see you. Now, you can absolutely do it. There are tons of blogs out there that are making an asinine amount of money. And there's a formula and there's a lot of competition, right? So if you want to take on that journey of learning what the formula is, how do you get people to consume your blog articles in a world full of tons and tons of blogs? Identifying your seeker and all the things I've said are important. That's one of the ways you can do it. And then once you get a following, you can start selling products or you can sell advertising on your blog. Bottom line is you need eyeballs. You need an audience. As with anything, you need an audience to sell a product to. So if you're going to do a YouTube video campaign or a YouTube channel, you're trying to build an audience. If you're going to do blogging, you're trying to build an audience. If you're collecting emails for an email list, you're trying to build an audience. So you can build an audience through blogging for sure. If you're willing to go through the trial and error, it's not going to be, for most people, it's not going to just be like, oh, now I have a blog and now there's an article that I put up and let me just tell some people about it. And all of a sudden we're going to have all kinds of comments and visitors and shares and products being bought. It's not going to be like that. I can virtually promise you that. Because again, there's so much competition. So if that choice is being made out of strategy because that's the better choice, great. Otherwise, I say confront your fears of video so you're no longer afraid of the visibility. I want to become a coach, but I'm not really sure where to begin. I've taken courses with Bob Proctor and have a lot of knowledge, but feel stuck. Well, try us. I mean, I have, I've been coaching for 13 years. My genius, if you will, is helping people get unstuck. It's helping people with limiting beliefs and helping people with values conflicts and helping people with fears of visibility and failure and all these things. And becoming a coach still involves all of those things. What I know is that information's not going to clear you. Information's not going to get you unstuck. So the last thing you need is more information. What you need is a transformation so that you don't have the stuck feeling anymore. Even though you've gotten some skills, it sounds like. I'm not familiar with Bob Proctor's program, so I don't know exactly what he teaches. I know of him, but I don't know what he teaches and what price points and all that kind of stuff. So I can't speak to what you actually learned, but I can tell you with a high degree of certainty that we teach people how to have neurotransformations, not just in themselves, but how to create that for other people. And we have an online program and we have an in-person program. And I stand by it 100%. I think it's the best thing that I've created, at least up until this point. And if it is a personal challenge of being stuck, then give yourself that experience of attacking the actual problem, instead of just trying to get more information. So, well, Wisdom, I don't know your first name unless that is your name. That's awesome if it is. I'm gonna put a link here in the section. Michelle might have already been typing it. And what it is a link to, oh, cool. Du Carmel. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but that is a cool name. Awesome. So I just put a link in the comments. You should be able to click it. It should be a clickable link. It's coachseansmith.com/try coaching with a hyphen in between. And that will take you to a Calendly link where you can schedule a free consultation, and you'll get on the phone with Michelle. And she'll find out more about what you've learned up until this point, where you think you're stuck, and how you can get unstuck. And I hope to see you in our program. So we have a program called Breakthrough Coaching Certification. It's an online program. It's neurotransformation. It's how to really get in and understand how the brain works and understand how we sabotage ourselves. And more importantly, understand how to get rid of the sabotage and manage our human fears and all the things that our brains do. So my experience is that a lot of people try to treat their sabotage issues with information, and it's just not going to work. Information isn't what caused the problem. So information is not going to release the problem. So I do have that online program. It's cheap. It's guaranteed, meaning you got a money back guarantee if you don't like it. It's all the information that changed my life in that program, as well as the 5-day course. So maybe we'll be seeing each other in the program. And if that's the case, then that would be fantastic. So Michelle's saying you can't click it, but you can copy and paste it. Okay. And if you just want to check out that program, then you can go to Coach John Smith /BCC. I'm typing that in here too. You can copy and paste that. That's just the program. But either way, I highly suggest you book a call. Michelle's amazing at identifying what is really holding people back and get to the heart, as well as the quickest way out of whatever that stuck feeling is. And she'll take care of you. So whether you check out that program and whether you get it or not, do the call with Michelle for sure. Excellent. All right, everyone. Let's call it a session for now. If you have any other questions, if you're watching this on the replay, or you have any other questions that we didn't address here, let us know. And you can put a comment here or email Sean@coachseansmith.com, and we'll support you however we can. You know, I have a pretty big mission to get the world as much healing as possible. So if you want to join that mission and you want to join the army of transformational coaches that are helping people deal with anything that they're struggling with in life and get to a place of more happiness and more love and self-control, management, all that stuff, then join us. Yeah, Michelle just typed in cape up. Man, the world that we live in now needs some superheroes, and not just the ones on the big screen. It needs people that can actually go in and do some of this work and free some people from pain and suffering and trauma and all the stuff that people are going through. So I am a geek about that work. I've been studying it for over 13 years as of right now. And it's amazing. So for any of you that are interested in that kind of work, then check us out. If you have any questions, let us know, and have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.